better person on the planet qualified to speak on this anniversary of Dr. Thurman's appearance than our guest today, Dr. Walter Earl Fluker. Whom I will introduce more formally in a moment. But we have a tradition on this day, and we will now honor that as I call upon the 39th President of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel Assistants, Mr. Damari J.L. Craddock, class of 25, who, if all goes according to plan, should be admitted to Yale University. Probably next semester. Mr. Craddock, won't you come forward now for the announcement of the recipient of our King, Martin Luther King Scholarship.
Good morning. Let's try that one more time. Good morning. My name is Damari Craddock. I am a graduating senior religion and philosophy double major from Orange Park, Florida. And according to Dina, I serve as the 39th president of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel Assistance Program. And on today, I have the esteemed honor and privilege of introducing the next Martin Luther King Jr. Scholar. But before introducing the name of the individual who earned this scholarship, I should give you some background behind this scholarship. The Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship was established June 9th, 1991 by Mr. Amos H. Lynch Sr., founder and publisher of the Columbus Post newspaper, and the Reverend Dr. C. Dexter Wise, senior pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church, both of Columbus, Ohio. These gentlemen founded the nation's largest annual sit-down meal in honor of alumnus Martin Luther King Jr., class of 1948, a breakfast of 6,000 Columbus citizens every January. The funds from this breakfast have made it possible for the organizers to present to the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel Assistance Program a check, which has ranged from $10,000 to $15,000, to be presented to a pre-seminarian selected by the dean of the chapel. The breakfast organizers were childhood mentors of the Reverend Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter Sr., who grew up in Columbus and attended the Shiloh Baptist Church, where his mother was also a member. The annual tradition continued under the leadership of Dr. Otha Gilliard, senior minister of Shiloh, until his passing in 2022. Each King Scholar typically delivers one sermon and 3 speeches during the weekend of the breakfast at the Shiloh Baptist Church, the New Salem Missionary Baptist Church, where alumnus Dr. Keith A. Troyce is senior pastor. At the MLK Jr. Day Breakfast in Columbus Convention Center, and before a corporate executive leadership team in downtown Columbus at Nationwide Insurance Company. The breakfast takes place annually on the National Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And a few names who have received this scholarship over the years: one, that of Reginald Wayne Sharp, that of Raphael Warnock, and another myself, and another Reverend Kenny Rice, some names that you may know. And the new King Scholar for this academic school year, he is a graduating senior religion and psychology double major, and his plans are to head to Boston University, none other than Jacarius Conley. You can come on up.
Wait a minute. Dr. Fluker, would you join us? You are about to understand why I had to invite Dr. Fluker to join the photograph. Walter Earl Fluker is well known internationally in the theory and practice of ethical leadership. Dr. Fluker holds dual positions of scholar in residence at Morehouse College and distinguished professor of the Howard Thurman Center at Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, and previously served as Dean's Professor of Spirituality, Ethics, and Leadership at Emory University's Candler School of Theology. At Morehouse College, he was the founding director of the Andrew Young Center for Global Leadership, and he was the Coca-Cola Professor of Leadership Studies. He is a Professor Emeritus of Ethical Leadership at Boston University and the editor of the 5 volumes of the Howard Thurman Papers Project. During his tenure at Boston University, he developed an acclaimed massive online operating course titled Ethical Leadership, Character, Civility, and Community. Recently, he was honored with the 2023 Franklin D. Roosevelt Institute's 4 Freedoms Award of Worship, along with Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Dr. Fluker is a prolific author and editor, and I will sum that up by saying his total publications of books numbers 13 volumes. I hope that some of those books are available to you in the Morehouse bookstore. He received his bachelor's degree from Trinity College in philosophy and biblical studies, his Master of Divinity degree from Garrett Evangelical Seminary, and his PhD in social ethics from Boston University. He's the recipient of 2 honorary degrees, and most recently, his Doctorate of Laws degree from our beloved Boston University. I'm delighted that he's our speaker today, and I hope you'll give him an official Morehouse welcome. Dr. Fluker.
Thank you, sir. Blessed art thou, Lawrence Carter, ruler of men and universes. I'm glad to be here with you. And to Damari Craddock, living in eschatological hope and promise that he'll graduate in the spring of next year, I want to say to you that we are saved by hope. And that hope sometimes materializes as we walk across the yard onto the platform and receive that diploma. I pray that for you this coming spring. And to our president, David Thomas, in his in absentia. I was reminded by Dr. Thomas a few years ago that his first trip to Morehouse College was to a conference on ethical leadership. We invited him to be a panelist, and I'm always both surprised and delighted at the synchronicity of the universe. Things come together, my young brothers, even though we don't see how they fit, they come together. I'd like to ask you where you are, because I think my being here today is as precipitous as it is appointed. I'd like for you to think about Dr. Aaron Parker and his family, and however you pray, and to whatever gods you pray, or if there are no gods in your portfolio, in contemplation, let us remember Dr. Parker just for one moment. Let us remember his daughter. Amen. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And blessed are you who are destined to be peacemakers in one of the most precarious moments in American and world history. I don't think it's an accident at all that we're here at this moment and at this time, when an entire country and world are at crossings. I don't know where you're from originally, but I know, like in South Carolina, Florida, some parts of Georgia, you'll see signs when you're walking or driving that says alligator crossing. These signs are both warnings of potential danger. They're just simply crossings. Our people, and I'm talking about people of African descent and marginalized communities around the world, are all aware of the promise and the perils of crossings. Morehouse College was established at one of those peak historical moments that was a crossing. Time between returning to slavery because of a redemption movement perpetrated by vicious racists who could not give up a lost cause narrative, and yet somehow in the midst of that darkness, light broke through. We're at one of those moments of crossings. Crossings in Gaza. Crossings in the Sudan. Crossings in Ukraine. And even this day, as we sit here with a new elected president who is choosing his cabinet to implement Project 2025, we are at crossings. I don't want you to be deceived, but you're here for a reason and for a season. This is not an accident. This is a moment where you must learn to choose, to discern, to deliberate, and decide which way you're going to go at a crossing. There's a story. I hope I get this right. Is this the mic that I should carry around? Yes. Okay. Is this the mic? Yes, this is the mic. I want to tell you two versions of a tale of someone who was at crosses. The 18th century Rabbi Nachman of Breslov tells the story of the tainted wheat. He says there was an astrologer king who looked at the stars and saw signs of what was coming. And he called his viceroy in and told his viceroy that the signs point to a terrible harvest of wheat. And anyone who eats the wheat this fall will go mad. So, Viceroy, what shall we do? The Viceroy said, well, King, you and I should not eat the wheat. And the king said, what kind of leader would I be if I were to allow all of my people to go mad and I remain sane? No, my friend, you and I must also eat the wheat and join our people in madness. But before we take the wheat, we must mark ourselves with a sign so that when we see one another in all of the madness, we will remember that we are mad. That was first version. Second version is the king calls the viceroy in and says, Viceroy, if we eat the wheat this fall, all of our people will go mad. The viceroy gave the same reply, and the king gave this response. He says, no, both of us will not eat the tainted wheat. I will eat the wheat and go mad with the people. But you, my viceroy, must remain sane. So that every time you see me and you see others, you must run through the marketplace and the villages and remind the people that they're mad. We're at crossings of madness and hope, precarious crossings, dangerous, perilous crossings, but on the other side of peril is promise. On the other side of tragedy is hope. If someone can remember and act, I love being here. I love coming back in the fall of my age, Dr. Bennett. because I know that if you live long enough and if you grow in any stature of wisdom, you'll learn one day that you're always at crossings. Every moment, every existential second of your lives, you're at crossings. But here now in the political, social, economic, global configuration of power, we're at a dangerous place. And we need those who recognize the madness and who are willing to run through the villages, through the communities of this nation, and remind the people that they're mad. I'm glad for technology. It saves me because I don't have memory anymore. I hope you will remember. You know, it's a dangerous thing to not have memory, because if you don't remember, you cannot hope. This I call to mind, and therefore I hope. We need memory in order to have vision. Even at this moment of crossings, my beloved brothers and sisters, if you're here, there are signs of madness. Madness isn't just an individual psychological episode. That's a product of Western civilization's cleavage between reason and unreason and so on and so on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about anomie. The sociology majors here, Frenchman Durkheim said, there's such a thing as anomie, normlessness, when all of the norms and the values disintegrate and a society falls into chaos. Even more menacing is when there's a cultural production of evil. Not just you're being evil or she's being evil, but when a society embraces and produces disinformation, misinformation, when it lies, it deceives, it hates, it pillages, when it is merciless. How can we understand what's happening right now in the Middle East unless that's evil? How can we understand what's happening in the Sudan, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in these United States of America, unless we know there's a cultural production of evil? Say that with me, cultural production of evil. You are not just those who will help us to remember and act. You're those who will bear witness to the cultural production of evil. Howard Thurman said it this way. He said, first there's fear, and fear builds into deception. And with deception comes hatred. And if you can hate long enough, he said, finger the hate in the silence of the night hour. That hate becomes violence, and violence becomes hell walking on earth. We're seeing hell walking on earth. There are signs of madness all around us. Anomie, deep alienation, fear, a weariness of spirit. But in the midst of the signs of madness, at the crossings, there is also hope. I'm almost there. I want you to hold that. Can you read that last sentence for me? I mean, in unison. You read out loud. This keeps people awake. I'm an old teacher. I know how to keep you awake. Read. How shall we remember that we're becoming mad? Read. How shall we? Outside of this chapel, I love Morehouse. I love Morehouse because every day you walk past two monuments. Thanks be to Lawrence Carter and for so many others who've curated these monuments. But you walk past two monuments. One is an obelisk and a crypt. I was present at the dedication with Sue Bailey Thurman and others as they walked the remains of Howard Washington Thurman along with Dean Carter and Olive Wong, the daughter of Thurman. They walked into the crypt and they left Thurman's ashes. This obelisk, each time I see it, piercing the sky like a huge ontological symbol of transcendence. I'm reminded of the old Ben stone. You young brothers, you ought to know what the Ben stone is about. This obelisk points upward, but it calls us inward. If you want to get home, if you want to be whole, says Thurman, you must be able to hold transcendence and immanence in balance. You must be able to hold the sky and the earth. This obelisk is what they call an oxus mundi. It's a pillar of the earth. It holds the sky and the earth, so that whatsoever is done in heaven must also be done on earth. I kind of wish you got that. And whatsoever you do on earth, they hear about it in heaven. The Egyptians had a belief that early in the morning, the sun god Ra would rise out of the eternal night. The Sphinx would look at it from a 55-degree distance as the sun traveled over the earth, shedding its light and returning into darkness. This obelisk, which holds the remains, the crypt, is a statement about life and death, about rebirth and resurrection. And your calling, my beloved brothers, is to wake up the dead. Those who are in madness, when you see the obelisk, remember that you're commissioned as an ambassador to wake up the dead. There's another statue. There's Martin. Thurman would just call him Martin. There's Martin. When Martin was a student here, Thurman and the King family were friends. It's amazing, Morehouse men, you're going to see one another forever. This is such an incredible network. So that by the time Martin gets to seminary, he reads Jesus and the Disinherited. And he quotes him in term papers without credit, of course. He was a preacher. He was a Baptist preacher. He didn't know to give footnotes. But he meets Thurman over and over again in his life. And so when I look at the obelisk, I see the statue with King with his shoulders set, his head elevated, and with his right hand, he's pointing towards the future. These are signs of peace. Quickly, in those last years for King, we say, blessed are the peacemakers, happy are the peacemakers, but King was not happy. He stayed at the crossings too long. And he decided in April of 1967 at the Riverside Church to stand out and call out the madness of this nation. He'd grown weary with our pillaging and slaughtering of the innocent people of Vietnam. And he stood there at Riverside and he says, we must bring an end to this madness. The next year, crossings are a dangerous place. That next spring, maybe 3 days later to the year, he was crossed at the crossing. Help me, people. You got that, didn't you? Howard Thurman, in his latter years, he's concerned about America and about democracy, and he sees it coming. At a speech in 1976, in the year of the bicentennial of the United States of America, at the University of the Redlands, he says, America is in search of its soul. And he said he was saddened by the fact that America had not found its soul. In fact, he said, school is out for America. He saw it. And he also saw you. Despite his eerie, prophetic denunciation of America, he saw you. He said in his last days, I see a new cadre of visionaries, ambassadors for peace, who are spiritually disciplined, intellectually astute, and morally anchored. He saw you rising up out of the dungeons of death and madness and bringing hope to a new world. And as I close today, my brothers and sisters, I want you to see it. See it. See a new heaven and a new earth. See it. See our people rising out of the dungeons of death and destruction and disease and climbing high mountains and joining King and Thurman on the mountain. I tell you, if you can hold fast to the dream that was theirs, politics can't legislate it. Ask them. Fire can't burn it. Water can't drown it. Police can't stop it. Death can't hold it, because it lives in the mind of the one who has said yes. And when this one says yes, there's no power in the universe that can nullify its mandate. Dream on, dreamers. Dream in season and out of season. Run to the mountain and see what the king saw. See what Thurman saw. see what others before them saw, a new heaven and a new earth. Ashe, amen, so it is, and so it shall be.
It's 11:45. We have a little time. There are two mics. If you have questions you'd like to put to Dr. Fluker, you may come and line up and do that now, and we'll take as many as possible. For those of you who might have to leave at the appropriate time, he will be speaking at 5:30 in the Chapel Library for the Thurman Thursday. Meets every week, the chapel assistants meeting, and you'll have a chance intimately to dialogue with him. First question.
My question is, as you said before, as all of us are the ones who are to remember to stay sane in the face of madness and to remember to remember that we are, remind everybody else of their madness. How do we cope being the ones or having the duty of remembering or reminding everybody else without falling victim to that same madness?
Mr. Rodriguez, that is the question of the hour, isn't it? How do I remain sane and healthy so that I might hope? Here are three things I want you to remember if you can. You can't do this by yourself. That's one of the tricks of Western individualism. Your first step is to congregate. Find some like-minded individuals like yourself. We call it communities of discourse and practice. You might use that at a dinner date, get you a long ways. But how do you congregate? How do you bring together those with like minds that are hoping? Secondly, you're called to conjure, congregate, conjure. You know what conjuring is? You're from Baton Rouge, that's why I use it. You know, we take the materials that are at hand. You don't need all of the technology and the weaponry of the world in your arsenal to begin your work. You must take what experience gives you and you must reconfigure it into tools for your liberation in community with others. You're far more powerful than you ever know. And nothing happens in serious moments like these until people congregate, conjure, and my last word is conspire. Not just diabolically, but conspire as breathing together. It's amazing to me that if just a handful of folks, I won't call any groups, were breathing together, we would have elected a very different president. But one breath, spiritus breath, in spirit, in like-mindedness, puts us in a position to handle the crossings because we do it in commons. That's a lot of words, but can you repeat it after me? Congregate, conjure, and conspire at crossings. You can do it, Morehouse. Anybody in the world can do it. It can be done at Morehouse. And I know you started that already. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Baton Rouge. Humility. I mean, I've been thinking about this a long time. You can tell, right? There's nothing like humility. These are just simple values. Howard Thurman used to say, humility is not a liability. Humility puts us in posture to be grateful. So humility also allows us to connect with the other without fear, without threat. And I'm convinced that it's your generation. I'll be long gone and you'll still be fighting this battle we're talking about now. But if we can learn the secret of humility and gratitude, you're already getting all of the weapons of the mind. That's why you're in school. So I'm not disassociating being smart, being astute, no. But what makes movements are people who are willing to see the other with dignity and respect. I have a motto, we call it recognition, respect, and to see the other in such light that I have reverence for you. Ashe, go in peace, sin no more. If you do sin, be careful. Stay in the light, my brother. No darkness in the light. I thought that was on my slide. I didn't get to that. Who is the other person? I'm listening. Yeah, you're heirs of the dream.
How you doing? My name's Lance Johnson Jr. I'm a freshman cinematography major from Charleston, South Carolina. And I really wanted to know, especially when it comes to promoting peace and us going forward as peacemakers, there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of successes and failures as we come through. So I wanted to know, what's your definition of success and failure, and how do you see that?
Definition, I'll go with the back and I'll work to the front. Success is knowing yourself. Oh, young man, this isn't me. This is ancient wisdom. First bit of knowing is to know thyself. That's what Thurman is all about. If you ever read Thurman, he's just saying, become acquainted with yourself. You haven't even met yourself until you spend time with yourself. We spend so much time looking at the other, gauging our success by the recognition of the other, that we seldom spend the time observing ourselves. And if I go deep enough into myself, I wake up in the world. Some of the most dangerous revolutionaries of history are those who spend long hours by themselves. I used to take students like you to, before South Africa was so popular, we would go to Robben Island and we would visit Mandela's cell. And students would see the little cot that he slept on and the bucket he used for excrement. He was there for 19 years. Wow. But he spent time with himself. The interiority of experience is what brings us into the world with fresh eyes. And so by the time he walks out of Robben Island and begins another journey at another prison and so on, he's already in the making to become the leader of his own people. It's true. It's true. So before you go anywhere else, this is what Thurman told me when I was about your age. He said, well, what do you want to do with your life? I said, and I gave him the regular Morehouse answer. And he said, whatever you do, all social issues are ultimately artificial and brief. Go deep. Wake up in yourself. You become a dangerous customer for the world when you do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. South Carolina, Lord Jesus. That's where they got those alligator signs. Yeah. Yep.
This will be the last question, after which we'll all rise and sing the college hymn.
Dr. Fluker, I want to say thank you for this speech. This was a really empowering speech, so I want to say thank you. My name is Nazi McCullough, a second-year CTIMS major, so film major, from Los Angeles, California. My question was, we talked about the concepts of heaven on earth and combining heaven and earth and vice versa. So what does heaven on earth look like for you?
It looks like you in that beautiful black body, getting ready to move things into new orbits. I don't believe there's a heaven up there and an earth below. I believe that they are in harmony. Transcendence and immanence are one fluid sentence. And if you can stand in the center of your own being and speak truth first to yourself, you know heaven and you know earth. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Minds innocent and quiet take that for a hermitage. But if you have freedom in your love and in your heart, you're free. Angels that soar in the heavens above know no such liberty. Assure you. Amour. Stand tall. I love this, Lawrence. I can stay here all day. I'm old.
Thank you.
You know, old people just love to ramble on and on. So thank you.